Hello friends, a very warm welcome to UnSarkari. I am Vikas Bhardwaj. Now, in this session also, we are going to take up a very important topic which is going to help you not only in the prelims but also in the mains examination. Understanding of the role of ad hoc committees in shaping the legal landscape of India and more is going to help you even articulate your answers during the personality test. So let's start going. When we speak about ad hoc committees in context of India as a democracy, a parliamentary democracy, and when we see them as an engine of change, they have to be seen as a very important and you can say key measure for India's legislative and policy evolution since independence. Because they are ad hoc, that means they are temporary in nature and they are purpose driven bodies. That also means they have shaped constitutional provisions. It is true, and they have helped in coming up of legal reforms and also, most importantly, institutional accountability. That means something is not done at the whims and fancies of a certain body, certain political party, or even certain vested interests. So the focus is on how ad hoc bodies influence legislation, policy reforms, and institutional accountability. And we have to see through case studies and statistical trends. So let's see the basics first. What are the constitutional underpinnings? Article 105, which is granting a member of parliament's privileges and immunities and enabling their free participation in committees proceedings without fear of legal consequences. And Article 180 is empowering each house to make rules for its procedures, including formation and functioning of such committees. What is very important to note, and you can write in your introduction of the answer, that the Constitution does not explicitly enumerate parliamentary committees. These articles legitimize their existence and authority. You will not find it writing in direct manner. If we see the procedural framework, the rules of procedure and conduct of business in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha detail the constitution, powers, and functioning of committees. Now, what are the types? You can say their classification is into standing committees and then into ad hoc committees. In ad hoc committees, which are temporary and they are constituted for specific tasks dissolved upon completion. So ad hoc committees are further divided into select or joint committees on the bills for legislative scrutiny. If something is being discussed in the parliament and it is supposed to be converted into a law, then discussion takes place. Inquiry committees are there for investigating specific issues and allegations. So what is the key takeaway for us? That constitutional and procedural framework is there, which is ensuring that ad hoc committees are empowered to conduct in-depth expert driven scrutiny of legislation and executive actions, and they are the vital instruments of parliamentary democracy. These are the keywords you have to write. Now let's see Constituent Assembly ad hoc committees and the foundation reports between 1946 to 1950. The Constituent Assembly 1946 to 50 relied extensively on ad hoc committees to draft and refine India's foundational legal and institutional architecture. Okay, foundational. A new democracy coming into picture, which is having a strong civilizational and strong, I should say, freedom struggle roots. So you just think about what can be the committees upon. Citizenship clause, Northeast Frontier Assam, that is tribal and excluded areas subcommittee, which is shaping special provisions for tribal areas. Later it is reflected in sixth schedule. Expert committee on financial provisions, that means fiscal federalism leading to finance commission and auditor general. Advisory committee on political safeguards for minorities, that is as yeah, addressing minority rights, reservations, and influencing the abolition of separate electorates. So when we see the impact and legacy, these committees conducted extensive consultations, field visit, clause by clause scrutiny, setting precedent for participatory and expert driven lawmaking. Just visualize how the member of parliaments, how the bureaucracy, how the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha secretariat would have been working. That means these reports are laying the groundwork for India's federal structure, minority protection, and also for fiscal arrangements. For example, ad hoc committee on citizenship clause. It recommended inclusive citizenship criteria, balancing just solely and just sanguine's principle. That means who are, you know, the part of the soil, those who are part of the territory, those who are part of the culture since ages, since long time, since ancestral time period, and sanguines by by the principle of brotherhood, by the principles of being, born on the land. So these are the certain basis on which we can say future legislative refinement, a model of flexible and expert consultation drafting took place. When we say early post-independence ad hoc commissions, which are shaping the law and federal structure, one example is you must write is of State Reorganization Commission SRC 1953 to 55, and the mandate was to examine the reorganization of Indian states into such bodies to promote welfare, unity, and administrative efficiency. So, what was the method? I want to tell you. The public communication was there, field visits were there, covering 38,000 miles, visiting here and there, political parties, associations, journalists, local representatives. That means role of civil society. That means the key principles of unity and security of India, linguistic and cultural homogeneity, financial and administration viability, and balanced regional development are at the core of ad hoc committee's work. Now, if we see case studies, so Andhra State Formation 1953, triggered by public agitation and Potti Ramalu's fast, examined by ad hoc committees led by Justice Vanchu and Mishra, setting a template for linguistic statehood. Karnataka and Kerala formation, a fact-finding ad hoc committee, it assessed the financial and administrative feasibility leading to integration of linguistically homogeneous regions. That means those regions which are speaking Kannada, they must become part of Karnataka. Those who are speaking Malayalam, they must become part of Kerala, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. So here SRC's nuanced approach to linguistic and economic factor influenced the eventual bifurcation of Bombay state into Gujarat and Maharashtra. So what is the institutional legacy? Consultation, data-driven approach. These are the models. Later on we will discuss Mandal Commission and Justice Roma Committee also. But you have to understand how just States Reorganization Act 1956, it fundamentally reshaped the India's federal map was actually based on ad hoc committees work. So JPC, like JPC, what are JPC? JPC are also ad hoc bipartisan committees comprising members from both houses constituted to investigate issues of national importance and to scrutinize complex legislation wherever there are doubts. So they are formed by a motion adopted in one house and concurred by the other. Size and composition may vary. So landmark JPCs, for example, JPC on 2G spectrum allocation, that is very important. So mandate was to investigate allocation and pricing of telecom licenses spectrum between 1998 to 2009. So it had more than 57 sittings, more than 155 hours of discussion, more than 2,500 pages of records. So it was examined by former DOT secretaries, TRI chairman, CBI, CAG, industry associations. So finding lack of transparency, presumptive loss to exchequer. Supreme Court cancelled the licenses and asked for competitive allocation. Shift to auction-based spectrum allocation, strengthening oversight and constitutional accountability. Similarly, the JPC on Harshad Mehta and Ketan Parikh scams investigated security market fraud in 1992 and 2001. Reforms in, you can say, financial regulation and also market oversight. So JPC on pesticide residues in soft drinks 2003 and 4. So you need not to remember all the dates and years, but definitely you can just write down and it will help us for prelims also and mains also. Justice JPC on personal data protection, you know, stakeholder consultations, successive drafts of India's protection data. So they have been instrumental in shaping the future thinking, exposing systemic failures, recommending legal reforms, and enhancing public and parliamentary scrutiny of the executive. So when we say clause by clause scrutiny, so what is the role, how they are being done? Select committees are ad hoc bodies. They are constituted to examine specific bills in details. That is why member of parliament opposition always demand this. Conduct is actually reflected clause by clause scrutiny. They are inviting experts, stakeholders, and recommendations are there so that amendment can take place. For example, select committee on GST bill examine the constitutional 122 or 122 amendment bill for GST, multiple sittings, ministries, states, state bodies, experts. It recommended compensation for states. What should be definition of GST rate bands and what must be the safeguards of fiscal federalism we have discussed already. Similarly, Select Committee on Surrogacy Bill 2019, ethical, legal, medical, and there will be a lot of amendments which will be coming up on these lines, and the committees will be, bringing legislation ensuring technical, legal, and stakeholder perspectives when the law is coming into being. Justice Verma Committee, very important, criminal law reform, triggered by 2012 Delhi gang rape. The committee was tasked with recommending amendments to criminal law for faster trials and harsher penalties for sexual offences. It received more than 80,000 suggestions from the public and experts, submitted 631-page report in 30 days. So what must be the definition? removal of marital rape exception, stricter penalties on acid attacks, stalking and voyeurism, police and electoral reforms, including disqualification of candidates charged with sexual offences, emphasis on victim protection and witness report. And it led to the Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, which incorporated so many recommendations, transforming India's legal framework on sexual violence. So if we see Justice Verma Committee's work, then December 2012 to April 2013. So this is a very important, powerful, and you can say a very important development done by ad hoc committees, or you can say committees. Justice B.N. Sri Krishna Committee on Data Protection Law. The mandate was to develop data protection framework post Puttu Swamy judgment, which recognized privacy as a fundamental right. So there must not be any kind of conflict. It released a white paper, public consultations in 4 cities, extensive submissions from stakeholders. There must be DPA, Data Protection Authority, consent-based, right-driven data processing, special protections for sensitive data and for children, data localization, at least one serving copy of personal data must be stored in India, amendments to Aadhaar, RTI and IT Acts. So what is the legal impact? Drafted the Personal Data Bill 2018 and successive drafts including Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2023 is also influenced by it. That means this committee was able to set a precedent for expert-led consultative lawmaking and digital governance. So we are taking up certain examples to make sure that you understand in totality and you can write in your own words. That is the whole idea. So you see here also July 2017 and then 2019 to 2023 multiple iterations are there and JPC reviews there. So what is the key takeaway? That Sri Krishna Committee's participatory expert driven approach has become model for digital law making in India. Ad hoc committee as an instrument of institutional accountability. How? There is parliamentary oversight. How it is to be seen? Like public account committees, it examines government expenditures, CAG reports, and ensure financial propriety. JPC and inquiry committees investigate executive actions, regulatory failures, policy lapses, and holding the government accountable to parliament and public. Lok Sabha Secretariat and e-library Sansad is also playing important role in it. What Lok Sabha Secretariat is doing? Administrative and research support to committees, access to primary sources, expert memoranda and archival records. E-Sansad has over 13,000 digital committee reports. Transparency and public engagement, you can check and one can work on it. IIPA, Indian Institute of Public Administration, research and policy recommendations. It says that research, seminar, training committees, they are also work. And media studies, when you read newspapers like Hindu and Indian Express, they are also being quoted. So Hindu has documented trends in committee reference highlighting the decline in bills from 71% in 15 Lok Sabha to 16% in 17 Lok Sabha. That has implications for legislative quality and accountability. So when we see the statistical trends, that is committee referrals and meetings, you can write always in critical examine thing and while you are winding your answer that the bills referred to committees are down up to 16% from 14th Lok Sabha when it was 60%. That means in 17th Lok Sabha, committees held more than 1700 meetings and average duration was around 2 hours. MP attendance 50 to 60% per meeting, lower than plenary sessions, and action taken reports around 50%. So this is what you can write in your answer and you can always put it in a very objective way. Impact on legislative quality when the bills are passed without scrutiny. For example, 58% bills in the 17th Lok Sabha were passed within 2 weeks of introduction and 35% with less than an hour of discussion. 80% of budget passed without discussion on average. So the key takeaway is that declining trend in committee referrals and participation raises concern about the depth and quality of legislative scrutiny and also executive accountability. This is very important to understand. Let's take another example of Mandal Commission 1979-1980, which actually reflected the idea to identify socially and educationally backward classes and recommend effective action. We know 77% reservation in government jobs and education institution for OBC, carry forward rule for unfulfilled vacancies, and age relaxation and creation of backward list. Recommendations implemented in 1990 by Prime Minister VP Singh and Indra Swahani judgment was there versus Union of India. Supreme Court upheld 27% reservation, introduced the creamy layer exclusion and capped reservation total at 50%. Even this was done through a committee. Transformed India's affirmative action landscape, increased political representation and social mobility of OBC. Ongoing debates on reservation criteria and scope is still going upon it. So this is how one can understand. Another example we are taking here is of ad hoc committees in sports governance. National Sport Governance Act 2025. So legal framework says that that institutionalization and also creation of administrative bodies for crisis management in sports federation is of utmost importance. So the board, that means National Sports Governance Act says that there must be a board. A National Sports Governance Act says there must be a board which may constitute ad hoc bodies when a national sports body loses recognition or faces governance failure, which often happens if you read the newspaper. National Sports Board is empowered to grant, suspend, cancel recognition and conduct inquiries and enforce compliance because International Olympic Association demands such streamlining. So Delhi High Court judgment was there which quashed IOA's attempt to appoint an ad hoc committee for ski and snowboard India, affirming the autonomy of independent sport bodies not recognized under the act. Similarly, IOA formed an ad hoc committee to align the Equestrian Federation of India with new governance regime, ensuring compliance and fair elections. So institutional accountability. Ad hoc bodies restore legitimacy, transparency, compliance with international charter, Olympic, Paralympic games, and so forth. National Sports Tribunal provides independent, speedy resolution of disputes. That means not just in case of sports governance. If you think on the lines of some other important issues, also you can always create and think on your own that yes, this also you can put up. So comparative perspectives when we see, like in United Kingdom, there are select committees scrutinizing government department, hold public hearings and television proceedings. Parliamentary sovereignty committee supplements but do not override the supremacy of parliament in case of UK. In US, standing and select committees are there. They are also conducting legislative scrutiny, confirm appointments, investigative and in nature is reflected on executive actions. Checks and balances is there. Separation of power is being reflected and with robust subpoena and oversight powers are there. Canada joint standing and special committees are there for draft legislation and conducting inquiries. So what India can do? Mandatory referral may be there, all bills to be referred to committees, but it will be time taking and there may be, decision making will become a little slow, though we have to think about it. Transparency, public hearings and publication of expert submissions enhances accountability. We are following it. Research support is also we are working on it. So we need to create institutional framework little bit more more stronger so that committee powers, transparency and research capacity increases and reform proposal and institutional strengthening takes place. This can only be done with the help of the party in power, opposition leaders, so that overall Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha they both work in tandem. So what are the challenges? Limited powers are there with the committees. They are advisory and not binding in nature. Resource constraint is there. Low participation is there. Political influence is there in the nomination process. Declining referrals are there. More bills must be referred to the committees. Strengthen research support. Institutional accountability, that is mandate action taken reports and government responses to recommendation must be there. Mandatory referral, as I told you, amend the rules to require all non-finance will be referred to committee. Now this is a little radical. We have to think about it, but you can always quote in your answer. Enhance parliament participation is also a very important point. So we have to promote transparency, including public consultation and publishing expert submissions. And revitalizing committee system is very essential to inform lawmaking, executive accountability, and participatory governance in India. That means what we can say that as legal architects, these ad hoc committees have been very much fundamental to India's legal and institutional development from the times of Constituent Assembly till today. For example, sports law reforms we have just discussed. So they are flexible, expert-driven mechanism for detailed scrutiny, public consultation, and responsive lawmaking. Despite recent challenges, declining referrals, limited powers, and resource constraints, ad hoc committees remain indispensable for legislative quality, executive accountability, and democratic legitimacy. That's how you're going to end it. Strengthening their role through institutional reforms, research support, mandatory referral can help India in the longer run. What more ideas do you think we can bring into it, especially when we think about Viksit Bharat by 2047? We want to become a welfare-oriented, a great, responsible power, having having inspiration to rest of the world in democratic terms. So you can bring such ideas, but our goal in this lecture have been to make you understand the role of ad hoc committees, how it works since independence. So let's continue working by making complex topics simple, which had been the goal of UnSarkari, and also guiding process through sustained, authentic, and also customized efforts so that you can get success with your own hard work, with your own satisfaction, and contribute to not only your own well-being but also to the society's development. Thank you very much. Do join, work, and get success with UnSarkari.